Welcome to the Sober and Happy podcast, where we talk about all things recovery related, how to navigate the challenges that we'll face along the way on our journey towards our best lives, and how we could go from living a life of simply just being sober to a life where we are both sober and happy. Within recovery, there are several points that we'll have two choices: give up or be resilient, push through, and become the hero of our own life story. This is very obvious at the decision point of quitting an addiction, but in our recovery journey, we will find ourselves at the crossroads of this decision many times. Today, we will discuss why it is vital that we step up to those challenges, why even giving up on what may seem small at the time can begin a pattern that will lead us back to where we started, and how we can step up and be the hero in our own stories and have a great impact to the people around us. So buckle up. This is going to be a great episode. Welcome back. Before jumping back in, I wanted to let everyone know that I'm now posting daily content on both Facebook and Instagram. If you want to follow me, just search for I Am Sober and Happy. Also, feel free to DM me on either of those platforms. I would love to hear from you. In today's episode, I want to talk about the powerful connection between the hero's journey and the journey of recovery from addiction. I want you to think of your favorite movie and why you like it so much. I'm guessing that movie had a hero of some sort. That hero likely battled adversity, found a way to get through it, grew from the experience, came out the other side victorious, and often became an inspiration to others. Now imagine you turned on a movie and the main character had everything go their way. They never faced any challenges. It was a series of thing after thing simply working out for them. They grew up in an upper middle class neighborhood with perfect loving and supporting parents. School was easy for them and really didn't have anything go wrong in their childhood. They married their high school sweetheart and had amazing kids that did nothing wrong. The first job they got was their dream career with a perfect boss and coworkers, and they worked there until they retired with a great pension, which allowed them to retire comfortably and live happily ever after with a life filled with vacations, cruises, and weekends spent with their perfect grandchildren. Now, how boring of a movie would that be? Yet somehow many people think that life would be ideal, and every time we face adversity in our lives, that the universe is out to get us. One of the biggest complaints I hear from people, especially those in early recovery, is that sobriety is boring, yet we tend to idealize a life that would be exactly that. Adversity is what makes us grow into better people. Challenges are an opportunity to become the hero of our own lives. The bigger the challenges, the more growth we will see, only if we embrace the opportunity of the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a structure that most movies follow, and when applied to our recovery can be an incredible calling to step into that role of being the hero. Before we dive into the relationship between the hero's journey and recovery, I want to briefly recap the stages of the hero's journey. It is a narrative structure followed in many myths, legends, and stories from cultures around the world. It involves the hero's call to adventure, crossing the threshold into the new world, facing tests and challenges along the way, experiencing transformation and redemption, and finally returning with newfound wisdom. In the context of addiction, we could view the initial phase of addiction as the hero's ordinary world. Now, this may not seem like an ordinary existence to anyone who has not battled addiction, but when in the depths of addiction, it is exactly what that is. Even though it can be extremely painful, we are living in a state of familiarity where we still think that we could somehow manage our chaotic life until the call to adventure arrives. That call is often the realization that addiction is causing harm, a desire for change, or an external event that finally wakes us up to the reality of what our lives have actually become. Now, anyone who has battled addiction, who has gone through withdrawal symptoms, or battled through all the struggles of early recovery may not exactly consider getting clean and sober an adventure. But if we think back to our favorite movie and the boring fictional one that I came up with, which one is full of adventure? It is the one where our hero overcame all odds and came out on the other side victorious. The greatest adventures are challenging. They push us to our limits. They make us realize that we could do things we didn't think were possible, and they create heroes. The next step of the hero's journey is crossing the threshold. Crossing the threshold in addiction and recovery represents the moment when a person decides to confront their addiction and begin the journey of recovery. It's a courageous leap into the unknown, leaving behind the safety and comfort of the familiar and embracing the challenges and uncertainties that lie ahead. Many of us choose the familiarity of pain over facing the uncertainty of change. We'll come up with every reason why staying in our addicted lives might actually be better than trying to get sober. We'll try in every way possible to recapture the glory days when alcohol or drugs were giving us what we were seeking. We'll minimize the impact our addictions are having on our lives and the lives of the people that love us. We'll prioritize the wrong things in life. We will know in our hearts what we need to do, but hesitate because of that uncertainty. This is the hardest part of our hero's journey, stepping into the unknown. The only choice, though, is to choose to move forward, opening the door to our new life without knowing what is on the other side and walking right through it. If you have guessed by now, I'm not going to tell you that the next step of our hero's journey is that everything will go amazing and that you're going to live happily ever after. The journey of recovery is filled with tests, allies, and enemies. Allies could be support systems, therapists, and other people in recovery who offer guidance, encouragement, and understanding. Enemies may include negative influences, old habits, and the biggest one, which is ourselves. We'll have to fight self-doubt, self-sabotage, and the desire to do just enough to get by. All the things that threaten to derail the recovery process. The tests will come in many forms. There are various challenges and obstacles that we will face during our recovery journey. Early in recovery, they may be things such as cravings and triggers. As we go on, we'll need to face our past and learn how to deal with all the emotions that we've been trying to stuff down with our addictions. Then life is guaranteed to throw obstacles at us along the way. We have two lenses to look at these challenges. Throughout my life, I fell into the victim mentality. I would tell you that life was unfair and that things always seemed to not go my way. Simply getting sober did not change this. Yes, not living my old ways reduced many of the self-inflicted bad luck I thought I had, but life still happens. It was only after I accepted life's challenges and faced them that things really changed. And looking back on my almost 12 years sober now, I see that my biggest periods of growth were only after my biggest challenges. When I got sober, my dad was in prison again. He had a couple of years left before he'd be eligible for parole, and I imagined a period of life where we could actually establish a serious relationship. My dad and I have never been sober at the same time. I thought about us helping each other stay sober and creating memories together that didn't involve getting smashed drunk and getting kicked out of football games. Having my dad active and present in my life was a dream of mine since I was a little boy, and it finally seemed possible. And then, at 11 months sober, I got the call that he had terminal cancer. Going and spending the last few days of his life with him was incredibly difficult. I can't explain what it is like to say goodbye to my father in a hospital room that was also occupied by 2 armed prison guards. To say that was one of the most difficult times in my life to that point would be an understatement. However, after walking through it sober, I knew at that point that I could walk through anything sober if I chose to. I had doubts about whether I could stay sober up to that point. With my new resolve and confidence, my real recovery only started at that point, and the rewards I have received since that day only came from facing that challenge. Another stage of the hero's journey is the abyss and revelation. The abyss is something anyone who has battled addiction is very familiar with. It is the low point of addiction. It is the daily guilt and shame that we lived with. It is the pain of knowing that we are killing ourselves and destroying everything we love. It is the many times we promise ourselves that we're finally at rock bottom and then discover an even lower low. And finally, it is a point when we decide that enough is enough. At that moment, our lowest point forces deep self-reflection and a confrontation with the consequences of addiction. It is in our lowest lows that we often experience a revelation or gain a profound understanding of the impact of our addictions, which leads us to a powerful motivation for change. Now let's get to the happy part of the story, which is the transformation and atonement. Recovery from addiction is a transformative journey where we evolve and grow, often discovering new things about ourselves. It's a process of healing, self-discovery, and atonement. Atonement involves making amends, repairing relationships, and forgiving ourselves for past mistakes. These moments come in many forms. It could be a child who said they would never trust you again, looking at you across the dinner table and saying, "Mom, I'm proud of you." It might be finally facing and conquering your fear of chasing a career you've always wanted and getting a call to schedule an interview. It may be something that most people don't even recognize as a huge achievement, like getting a license back and having a car with both valid registration and insurance. With each of these achievements, we transform a little bit closer to being the hero that we all can be. And before we know it, we're at the final stage of our hero's journey, which is the return and sharing of how we did it. It is applying everything we learned along our journey and sharing our experience of recovery with others. It is the moment that we step out of what was a tragic story of hopelessness into our new story of inspiration. It is where we become beacons of hope, offering support, guidance, and inspiration to others who are still struggling. It is where we have the ability to introduce other people to their own hero's journey of recovery. That is when the real hero appears and the magic of recovery happens. Thank you for listening, and I'm hoping you're enjoying my podcast. If you're finding it impactful, all I ask is you please share it so it can impact others. New episodes come out each Friday, so I look forward to connecting with you next week. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and keep living sober and happy.